What's up out there? I have decided to end my Diablo 4 journey a little bit early. I'm going to explain all of that. I'm going to go into basically a miniature review. It's probably going to be a long video, but I'm going to go into my thoughts on Diablo 4 and I'm going to explain to you why I'm quitting, and it's basically Path of Exile. That's pretty much the be-all end-all of all this. And I'll get into why. So let's start off with a little bit of terminology because I think this is where things get lost. So some of you may call games like Diablo a hack and slash. Me, myself, and people in the area that I've known that have played this game would call it an aRPG. 4 letters, aRPG. You could call it a Diablo-like. And the reason I mention that is the lead designer for Diablo 4 in the campfire chat that they had the other night went on a whole big dissertation about this very topic, the nomenclature of what this game is called, and he started talking about Elden Ring and going into some weird conversation about side scrollers and stuff that have RPG elements that are action RPGs. We all know that action RPG encompasses a wide range of games. We all know that hack and slash could mean, to me, hack and slash means Dragon's Dogma. Other people think it means Diablo. aRPG to me may mean something different to somebody else. Very specifically, if I say Diablo style of game, you know what I'm talking about. Fans like me that were around when the Diablo style of game was invented with Diablo 1 nearly 30 years ago want a specific kind of game. Diablo 1 came out in 1996, 97, whenever it came out. And then a few years later, Diablo 2 came out and basically revolutionized everything that the original Diablo did. There was a competitor called Nox or something. I think it was in the Diablo 1 days. I've never played it, but I know it exists. At that point in time, there were some other games that came out that were similar to Diablo and maybe Diablo 2. I don't remember all the competitors. I played a lot of Diablo and Diablo 2. So then there was a big gap. And then you had Diablo 3 came out in 2012 or something like that. So basically, if you're familiar with the Blizzard story, which most people are these days, Blizzard North created Diablo 1 and 2, and they were actually a different company that got brought under the Blizzard umbrella and was called Blizzard North. So they were in a different city, and they were like a separate office, separate group and everything that did the original Diablo 1 and 2. So the Blizzard group, the actual Blizzard people, were the ones behind Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, StarCraft, that kind of thing. So that's the same era of time as those particular games that were out. Diablo 3 apparently started under Blizzard North, but then as companies grow and get bigger and their products get, the more mature and things like that, Blizzard started going into World of Warcraft. And I don't really know the history of World of Warcraft. A friend of mine was into it back in the day. I played it for a little bit, just tried it out. I wasn't interested and I moved on. So I don't remember the years that it started, but it was very early on. So pretty much what I envision happened is that as Blizzard grew, Blizzard North got enveloped into Blizzard and those people retired, went on to a different role in the company or just left, whatever happens during a company. So Diablo 3 sat on the shelf for nearly over a decade, really. And then finally comes out in 2012, I think it is. And I didn't actually play Diablo 3 until 2016, I think. So I'm used to Diablo 1 and 2. Now that I'm looking back at Diablo 3, it's got that World of Warcraft look to it. It's got that cartoony appearance to it. So in my opinion, what probably happened is Blizzard became a much more corporate environment. And if you've ever worked for a corporation, you'll understand that. So the more corporate they became, the more diluted their staff became, and the more, obviously they weren't working on Diablo because there was a 10-year gap, at least a 10-year gap between when 2 and 3 came out. So when you're pulling developers off, they probably still had some of the old Blizzard North staff there for Diablo 3. I'm not totally familiar with how it was developed, but just logically thinking it through, I would imagine that there was still some Blizzard North staff there who were fans and developers for the original Diablo 1 and 2. So there was at least some attachment to it. But now you're starting to bring in all these other Blizzard staff that were working on World of Warcraft, I don't remember when StarCraft 2 was all involved, but I mean, somewhere in that realm, they got big into World of Warcraft, and that's all Blizzard did. That was their name, and that was what they did. So now you're pulling in that talent that developed artwork and audio and visuals and stuff like that. And I think that's why Diablo 3 looks a lot like the cartoony look of World of Warcraft, is because you've got all these developers coming over and they're bringing their ideas on board and saying, well, we've got this game engine that looks like this, so now we're going to develop that. So I think that's why Diablo 3 looks like it does. It had some of the same developers from Diablo 1 and 2, but not a whole lot of them. And now you've got a whole bunch more coming in from Diablo 3. So when I played Diablo 3, I played it for the story alone just to see where things went. It felt a little different than the other two games because you started bringing in Tyrael and all the angels and stuff like that. And I don't remember it. I need to go back and play through it. It's something on my list. I have been playing a little bit of Diablo 3 recently just to go through it. And I noticed as I was playing Diablo 4, some of the areas were very reminiscent of Diablo 3. And I'm not talking about just the layouts of them or just the art style and stuff. I mean, like the layout. I was playing it and there was one castle area that felt very familiar. So what I kind of wonder is, did they just take the code for Diablo 3, put a coat of paint on it, bring up the networking portion of it to modern and call it good? Because the other thing is, I know I checked out the Barbarian in Diablo 3 because I thought the Barbarian in Diablo 4 sucked. I don't like having to generate fury, but I went back to Diablo 3. Keep in mind, I've only played it once. I don't really have a whole lot of history with that game because I just played it once for the story and it was on console, whereas I've played the other two Diablos on PC a lot over the years. Well, back then. But point being, the Barbarian in Diablo 3 plays almost exactly like the Barbarian in Diablo 4. You have to generate fury, except in Diablo 3, you start off with a full tank. You don't start off with it empty, and then you generate it from there. So it's very, very, very reminiscent of Diablo 4's iteration of the Barbarian. So what does all this have to do with me and where I'm playing? Okay. I bought this game, and when I bought Diablo 4, I put 7 hours into my first character. I did find out there's an hour meter in here, and in your profile, you can go check out how long you put into it. I put 7 hours into it, and it was during season 1. I got it when it first went on sale, and it was a huge miss for me. I thought the game was excruciatingly boring. I did not care for the campaign. I don't know who Lilith is. I don't know who Inarius is. I have no idea who any of these people are. So I bounced off of it. I had been playing Path of Exile. I just went back to Path of Exile. Okay, cool. So season 2 comes out for Diablo 3. I put 3 hours into the second season, and the key draw for me there was that I could skip the campaign, but I still didn't get my horse. So I put 3 hours into it. I tried to get the horse, and it just wasn't getting there, so I quit. So then Last Epoch comes around. I go play Last Epoch, and when I got done with that, I thought, you know what? I need to finish Last Epoch. I need to go and play Diablo 4, try to do the campaign, try to get through it and finish it off and do an actual review on it. And that's where we're at today. So I started playing the game. I got it was at around 9 hours, according to my notes here that I'm looking at, but I'm 10 hours into the game at the moment. Around 9 hours into the game, I finally got the horse, which unlocks the horse for your entire account. So now that I've unlocked the horse, it's available on both of my barbarian characters that I had before. So that's great. And you unlock all the Altars of Lilith. So as I keep chipping away at the game, I can keep unlocking more of this kind of repetitive content that I really don't feel like unlocking, the renown and all this stuff. Because it's account wide, I guess, now, which is a huge change. I'm glad I didn't play the base game. So where we are today is after 2 days ago, I watched the campfire chat for the Diablo 4 devs. And then yesterday I watched the Path of Exile 3.24 League, Necropolis League, that's coming up here in less than a week from today, I think it is. So I'm sitting here, I get the horse today, and what caused me to change my mind about how I'm going to proceed forward with this game is the fact that I got the horse. I continued on through the campaign a little bit. I did a little bit more. I kept going on. I finished that was at the end of Act 3. So I started doing Act 4. The problem is I was level 29 and a half, and Act 4 is level 35. So I was doing some of it way under leveled, and it was okay. You know, I'm in World Tier 1. I thought I just want to blow through the campaign and be done. I did not anticipate having to stop and grind out 5 levels of character development to get up to where the story levels are. I bumped up my World Tier to World Tier 2, and then I went through 1 dungeon. So what I'm looking at doing now is, and from what I gather, the campaign is, say, 25 hours long. So I'm 10 hours into the game. I've got another 15 hours of campaign. That's just campaign. I don't know that includes grinding out 5 more levels of character. I'm kind of just not at the point that I want to play this. So, number 1, I watched the campfire chat, and I did not catch the initial part where Joe Shelley, who is the lead designer for Diablo IV, I think he's the lead designer, he was up talking about Elden Ring and all these other games, and he was making all these comments, and that's why I kind of was talking about hack and slash and aRPG and Diablo style and stuff like that earlier. I don't have the confidence that he understands his own product. Diablo created a genre. That genre is specific. I'm not talking about Elden Ring. I'm not talking about some side scroller that has RPG elements, but it's an action game. I want a Diablo style game. Isometric style. It's got loot that you get off the ground and you replace. I mean, Destiny's kind of a loot driven game, right? But we don't want a first person shooter version of this. We want Diablo style. We want something like Grim Dawn, Titan Quest, Last Epoch, Path of Exile. There are prime examples of contemporary games that are out there that are the exact game that we want. Now, the problem that I run into, like if I was to recommend to somebody that was interested in Diablo 4, is there an alternative to Diablo 4? The downside is I would say yes, but let me explain. So yes, there is an alternative to Diablo 4 in Last Epoch, but I don't think the campaign is as good. I can look at the Diablo 4 campaign and tell you that if somebody is interested in this kind of story with the visual storytelling and the cutscenes that it has, Last Epoch is a far superior game in all the gameplay elements. It's got the crafting system that Diablo 4 is going to add in Season 4. It's already got the crafting system. It has a way better itemization system. It's got far more build diversity and more interesting builds, more fun builds. I feel more freedom in playing. I don't have a left-right choice or a green-red choice that I do in Diablo 4. In Last Epoch, I'm getting loot for other characters, and I'm already thinking of other builds that I want to do. I got this really cool-looking shield, and I got a really cool-looking sword that's specific for this other character. Oh, maybe I'll just go try that out. I want to try other stuff. When I get something in Diablo 4, I think it's a waste of my time because I have received other items for other characters, but I received so few drops that by the time I do get a drop and it's for somebody else, I just throw it away and move on. I don't care. I don't want to try another build. I tried Barbarian. I bounced off Barbarian twice because it's a horrible build. You start with an empty gas tank on the right-hand side with the Fury, and you have to generate that Fury. That is lame and boring, and you hear, I don't have enough Fury to do that a million times because you go to use something and it's not there. So you got to use these really crappy skills to generate the Fury that doesn't exist. So I switched over to Rogue, and I'm using a Rogue right now. The Rogue is way better, miles better. I've gotten the horse now. There was a boss that I was stuck on with the melee side the first time around, and I blew through that boss this time. I've blown through every boss. The thing that I died to this last time was a level 35 boss that I can't beat because it's level 35. I mean, maybe I could. I was doing fairly decent with it. It was taking a lot longer. And these are spongy bosses to begin with. So I kind of just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't really think the dude that's in charge of Diablo understands what he's developing for. And I'm kind of getting off topic. So I was talking about comparing games. Get back to that for real quick. So Last Epoch is a much superior game in all the gameplay elements, but it's an inferior game as far as storytelling goes. The story's not that good. It doesn't have that good of cutscenes. Diablo 4 clearly has much better graphics and cutscenes and stuff like that. So if you want a 30-hour story, let's call it a 30-hour story. If you want a 30-hour story, Diablo 4 is the way to go. And Diablo 4 was just $35, which is half off. So you can get, you can get it for the same price as Last Epoch. So if you're interested in something that's super simple, it's going to have kind of the basic features that other aRPGs do eventually. Like it'll eventually get to a point where people are not so harsh on it. It took Diablo 3 10 years to get there, so it's probably going to take this one a while. You'll get a campaign that you'll probably like. It's got some really good gore to it and everything. And I would much prefer people played Last Epoch, but Last Epoch doesn't have as cool a story, and it doesn't have all the cutscenes and everything on there. Path of Exile is the far superior game than all of these, but it's got a much steeper learning curve. So it's hard to recommend that. Grim Dawn is a superior game, but it's an older title. It has 0 cutscenes. The story's convoluted. The story's about on par with Last Epoch. So there are alternatives, but they're not necessarily on par with this. Wolcen is probably the most on par game with this as far as graphics and cutscenes and stuff like that. But the base game, while it is miles better than Diablo 4's base game, as far as mechanics and stuff like that, it's still kind of a fundamentally broken game. So it's one of those, yeah, it's kind of on par with Diablo 4 as far as graphics and stuff go, but it's got its own issues. So there's all these alternatives to Diablo 4, but there's nuances to each one. So if you're really dead set on playing Diablo 4, and by all means, if you're enjoying Diablo 4, enjoy it. It is what it is. Many of us have enjoyed Diablo 4. For those of us that started with Diablo 1 and have been anticipating Blizzard to get back to what Diablo 2 was, because Diablo 3 deviated a little bit here and there and went in a different direction, they've now taken Diablo 4 in a completely new direction. I have no idea who Lilith is. Lilith was some side quest thing in like a Diablo 2 multiplayer season or something. Like nobody knows who she is. She's brand new to the series, basically, as far as I'm concerned, because she wasn't part of the core base game of Diablo 1, 2, or 3. Now it's just some new character. It's like a lot of the new movies you've got out today or the TV shows or something that new owners take over and they just wipe out and kill off all the old people and start with new. And older fans of these series don't have any clue what's going on. Newer fans are like, hey, this is great, but you're missing the point, missing the fact that you're just killing off all of your existing fans. Yeah, I mean, we can argue this all day long. There's new fans that enjoy it. Like I said, if you enjoy the game, go enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, or if it doesn't look interesting to you, I would recommend Last Epoch, Path of Exile. Go find something else. There's so many other games. So, very long intro into this whole thing, but I wanted to kind of set the tone for why I'm going to quit and move on. I have Path of Exile, a new Path of Exile league. I've got some, planning to do for that. I mean, so I'm planning for the next league. It's like college or school all over again. You got to prep up for the next one. And I just feel like Diablo 4 is going to take away from that. And I would have to sink another 15, 20 hours into this game that is the rest of this week. At the way that I play, it's going to cost me the rest of this week when I could just go be spending time on my league. So this is going to be a long video. Let me continue on with what I would actually review this with, the good, the bad, and there is good here and there is bad. So let's start talking about the general game with the open world. There is far too much walking. They spend too many times. I showed one in one of the previous videos I did where there was 4 staircases that you walked across a room that had 4 large rooms with 4 staircases in between, and you had to go through that whole thing with no enemies. It took 30 seconds or a minute to walk across. There was 0 point for it to be any longer than 1 room wide to go over and open a door. That was it. And that repeats multiple times throughout this. There are these little seller icons. Every time I get to one of those seller icons, it's like a horde mode. And either you'll have somebody that says, hey, defend me or something like that, or you'll walk in and there's a bunch of things that attack you. It's always the same. The monsters might be different, but it's almost always the exact same kind of horde mode every time you go in one. And I kind of laugh every time I go in one. I'm like, is it the same thing? Yep, same thing. It's just different monsters. So very extremely repetitive. The horse it took me 9 hours to get the horse in an open world game, mind you. An open world game took 9 hours to get the horse. That should have been in the first hour or two. And I'm absolutely blown away that they don't give it to you almost right off just because of the microtransactions and putting all the stuff on it. It just blows my mind that it takes too long. The open world is pretty much useless. I don't understand why they did the open world. There's all this crafting materials you have to gather, and if you watch their campsite chat or campfire chat, it sounds like they're just going to do away with all that crafting material, so it's pointless to have. You skip past all the monsters. You basically go from one waypoint to the next waypoint, and you ignore everything in between. So the open world is kind of just, why does it even exist? And then even then, there's a lot of path through there where you just walk past everything. You're walking down the road, you're skipping along. Maybe there's monsters, maybe there isn't. It's just wide open with nothing. And you just skip past so much of it. Like, I don't care about the Altars of Lilith. I don't care about all the little side quests. I just, not interested. The next problem I have is that there is no overlay. The Diablo 1 game from nearly 30 years ago had an overlay. You push tab, it went from the top right corner to an overlay. You're out walking around with the horse, you have to constantly look up at the upper right. Meanwhile, you're getting hung up on all the land and everything, all the little weird bends in the map and all that stuff. It's a very frustrating experience, and if you do hit tab, it pulls up this giant map, and you can't move while you're in it. So it's very frustrating. There are a lot of things that waste your time. Progress bars to open a door. I did this mission today with, I can't remember the guy's name, but you had to go get this piece thing for, it was in Act 3. God, I wish I could think of the guy's name. But you had Narelle and Thaisa and then this other dude. And he's like, oh, go pick this thing up. So you go over to pick this thing up and it puts a little progress bar that goes over. In any other game, you just go click on it and it puts it in your inventory, and then you walk over and click on it and it puts it out. Well, no, not in this game. You have to wait for a progress bar that artificially takes 2 seconds of your time. It's 2 seconds of your time. But there are so many things in this game that just waste your time. The comment about all the different ramps you have to go up, like you have to cross a room that's this big, not this big, this big to get from one door to the other. And they do that multiple times. The progress bars on things that you should just click on. To click and open a door, there's a progress bar. Why? Why can't you just click on it and it opens up? Why does it have to have a progress bar? Like, everything in here is artificially there to inflate. It's there to artificially inflate your playtime and make you think you've got a lot of good game. I did a video a while back where I was showing that it felt like I was spending as much time walking and watching cutscenes as I was fighting and in combat. And the 10 hours that I've played of this so far has not been me doing any side quests. I don't think I've done maybe 1 or 2 side quests the entire time. I've been totally moving on the main story. I did detour for about 20 minutes trying to do a world boss or something. I could never find it, and I didn't see the timer for it. But this playthrough, solid 10 hours of nothing but driving on the campaign. And if my estimates are correct, that means 5 hours of that was spent in combat, and 5 hours of that was spent walking around and watching cutscenes. And I've been watching the cutscenes because I wanted to try to follow the story. I've been hurrying along the conversation. There's a couple of different options. There's conversation scenes where you can actually click through and speed it up, and then there's cutscenes which actually show something. It'll have a conversation or whatever. I've not been skipping those unless I've already seen them, but I've not been skipping those. But I've been kind of pushing through that dialogue, just reading it real fast and skipping through. The other thing you'll notice it's no, I noticed it, is that somebody will talk and then they'll talk a little more and they put these weird pauses in the conversation. Sometimes the pause is there as necessary, like you can tell they're in thought, but the pause will go just a little bit longer. It just feels like there's a lot of artificial wasting of your time put in here for no specific reason. So between walking around everywhere and listening to these weird conversations that are just a slight bit longer than they should be, the little progress bars on everything, like it just feels like my time is being wasted artificially for no particular reason. Like there's no game reason for it. There's no story reason for it. It's just there to inconvenience me because it makes my hour meter go up and they could say, look, you've been playing for 30 hours and you got 30 hours of campaign. In reality, if my math is correct, I get 15 hours of campaign or probably closer to 20 hours of campaign and 10 hours of useless walking and digging through other crap that doesn't make a difference. And another good example, you go into dungeons, you go into campaign areas, and typically you'll go through the door, you'll come down, you'll go right. And you walk for a while before you get into combat. And there's a lot of places where you just skip the entire combat, go fight the boss at the end because all the other stuff before that was just pointless fodder and a waste of time. So you skip past all that, go fight the boss and move on. So there's a lot of things that just waste your time in this game. Continuing down the complaint, in the general complaints that I have, the dodge move barely moves. I did get the ability to use the dodge move twice. That was awesome. That was cool. I did get a dash move. It's kind of an attack and it goes across the screen. So that is very similar to the ranged build in Last Epoch, but the ranged build in Last Epoch doesn't have as long of a cooldown. And they do have, well, they don't have a dodge, but they do have, or the dash, whatever. There's two different versions of that in this game. Last Epoch doesn't, but those moves in Last Epoch feel much better because you can use them more often, and they actually have their own skill tree. There's so much better stuff over there. Stunned and frozen, way too long. If you get frozen in this game, you're basically watching your health drain down until you die, and there's nothing you can do about it. If there's any way of mitigating that or changing it, I don't know. I don't like it in Path of Exile, but it feels more egregious in this game than it does in Path of Exile. And also in Path of Exile, you've got ways of mitigating it. I don't know if you can in this one. Like you can put potions on in Path of Exile that let you just take that away, take that effect away. In this game, you're just basically frozen and you're taking damage. You can't even heal through it. I think in Path of Exile you can, as long as you've got health potions and all that, I think. But in this game, you're just stuck. You're just frozen. And if you're in a pack, you're getting beat on and killed. And I've died a few times to that. It's very frustrating, and I'm not a fan of it. You have to level up your potion. I'm not a hater of this, but you have to remember that when you hit certain levels, you got to go to a certain person and have them upgrade your potion for you. Last Epoch, you don't ever do anything with your potion. You just use your health potion, and that's it. You get more off the ground, and you use them. You don't have to upgrade it or anything. With Path of Exile, it's a whole complex system of itself, but you can modify it and make changes to it. I don't hate the way this does that. I just hate that I have to remember to go somewhere and go talk to somebody to get an upgrade. I don't know, maybe upgrade it automatically. I don't really hate it. It's just different. I don't know that I love it, but it is what it is. I am not a fan of when you level up, it kills off or does a lot of damage to the enemies around you. There was times that I saw that they weren't killing them, but they were hurting them a lot. Just because you level up doesn't mean it should throw out a wave that kills everything around you. I think that's stupid and it's awkward. I don't really like it. Am I getting the XP for it? I don't know. I'm playing this game to kill things and then it just auto kill stuff. I don't really like that. All the renown missions just feel like pointless fetch quests. I bounced off that, didn't want to deal with any of it. Respecking in this game, I will give them this. Respecking in this game is fantastic. It is the easiest respec you can ever do. If you don't like something, you click respec, and then it refunds all your points. You go and redo everything, done. I've tried a couple of different builds out. The respecking is actually really well done in here. But, your choices are left and right, so whatever. Super bullet spongy boss fights. I wouldn't say the mechanics are terrible. A lot of the boss fights are kind of mid. There are some really cool bosses that look good. The Endariel fight was really cool. There was one fight, I don't remember who I fought, but this little armored dude comes out, and he basically, you open up all the armor, and it's some dude like gimp dude stuck in the armor on that guy was great. I don't remember what boss I fought. This game has the same problem that Last Epoch does. The boss fights are not really memorable. I remember the one because I died to it a lot with my melee character. I don't know what it was called. A lot of the boss fights are kind of forgettable, and they're just bullet sponges. So that kind of wraps up my general thoughts about things. So let's get into some specifics here. Music. Good, but not memorable. This was better than Last Epoch's music. I thought Last Epoch was really weird on the music. Like the music didn't change for combat, and it didn't really fit the combat. Like it was a really mellow flow, and I'm trying to do something, killing a boss or something, and the music just didn't fit. What worked in Diablo 1 was that the music fit the area you were in, so you just kind of got immersed into everything. Diablo 4 doesn't have quite the iconic music in it. Like the music was okay. I noticed it. I actually tried to pay attention to it, but in Diablo 1, it immerses you into it. In Diablo 4, it's kind of like background elevator music that kind of mellow in the background. It just kind of gets you through your day. It's easy listening stuff. I didn't hate it. It was just what it was. Graphically, the game looks great. I would say it looks a bit soft though. As you go around, it just feels a little fuzzy or soft or something. I'm not sure that I'm getting the right words on here. Gore-wise, this game, I went into a couple of dungeons and there's like blood on the floor, and they may have some symbols and stuff drawn out that's got blood in them and things like that. And I thought, okay, I'm missing all the gore. If you go play the original Diablo, there's like bodies stuck up in spikes, there's blood all over the place. You open up the butcher's chamber and there's just bodies and parts and stuff hanging everywhere. Like it goes hard, And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, this really doesn't have a lot. I watched the Path of Exile 2 video, and some of the areas in there looked as good or better than the Diablo 4 as far as gore and atmosphere and stuff. And then I did get into some areas that did have a little bit of gore, but it was weird. They had like a little pocket of gore over here, and then you had this big gray walkway or something like that. It was like stones or whatever. And then another little pocket of gory stuff over here, like somebody up on a spike and stuff. So they do have people on spikes and entrails and stuff like that, but it's really weirdly sparsed out. And the world just feels far too big. Like the levels are too spread out. So when they do have some of the cooler stuff, it's not compressed into where it feels appropriate. It just feels like a giant level that somebody took things and spread it all out and made it bigger than it needs to be, if that makes sense. So yeah, a little bit, kind of not there with the gore, and the graphics are good, but it's a little soft, and the gore is there, but it's not all over the place. Cinematics, this game does a fantastic job with cinematics. Some get a little, some of the middle cinematics that I like, they started off really strong, and then some of the other ones kind of felt a little not so good. But the opening cinematic with Lilith and those thieves was amazing. And there's a couple of really good ones in there, but then they started getting a little, I wasn't too thrilled by them. So I like them, but the campaign, very cutscene and dialogue heavy, as we've kind of been talking about here. I mentioned all the pausing in the conversations. It just kind of, I notice it because I notice my time being wasted. I'm sitting here thinking, well, I could be doing anything else but sitting here listening to this. But I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt and go through the story. My biggest complaint about the campaign is having to redo quests. Now, there are several different reasons for this. There have been times that the quest marker bugs out and it's showing the entrance to the dungeon instead of going 20 feet that way. or the map doesn't show that the level continues on. So you're in the middle of this big room and there's a door over here you're supposed to go through. Well, the quest marker's showing the entrance to the dungeon way back here, and it's not showing you that you need to go here, and the map cuts off. So you're thinking, well, I'm done. So you teleport out. Well, you didn't get the mission or the quest completion dialogue, and now you have to go redo the entire thing because you're thinking, oh, I'm done. You go back to town, log out for the night, and you're done. And then you log in the next day and you have to redo it. Well, come to find out, the map bugged out or something, or the quest marker wasn't showing right. And all you had to do is go over here, talk to somebody, and then the mission's done. So now you've redone the thing for 20 minutes. I have ran into, there's the Doran, whatever that guy's name is. There's 2 quests with him that are identical. And I showed one of them on one of my other videos, but I swear I did that mission. And the more I think about it, the more they just repeated the mission twice. So you go to his house the first time and he's talking to his kid in the basement. Then the house gets attacked. You go upstairs, you fight some monsters in the house, you fight some monsters in the courtyard, and then you go on and continue through Act 1. Later in Act 1 or in Act 2, I don't remember which one it is, you go to his house again, you go back down in the basement, but this time he goes to, he talks to Lilith. And same thing, you come out, you go into a fight inside the house, and then you go fight outside the house. It's the exact same content, just with a different cutscene or a different thing behind it. So there are quests that repeat, not only because it bugged out, but also because they just repeat the same quest. And Donan, that's the guy's name. And then the other problem that I've kind of ran into is because it's open, you can do quests from Act 1, 2, or 3 at the same time, I think. Because I think what I was doing at one point was doing Act 1 quest, but then I was close to an Act 2 area, so I'd go do that quest, and it would reset what I was doing in Act 1, and I'd have to go do it again. So I ran into that weird issue. Side quests. There's some unskippable dialogue in side quests. Why would I start a conversation with some random person and not be able to skip out of it? There are some you can't skip. That's kind of stupid. There's a kid in here named Urine, whatever. I thought that was kind of funny. I did like the Astaroth fight. I thought that was pretty cool. The Mashif escort mission through the Stinging Desert got old fast. There's like 4 legs to it, or 5, something like that. The first or second leg was fine, but after that, I could have been done with it. Like, I wasted almost all my health potions to get to the final area, and then there wasn't a place to recharge my health, and I had to go into the next battle with 0 health potions and a lower health bubble. I thought that sucked. So let's move on and talk about builds. The Barbarian build, or the Barbarian class, is ass. That thing sucked, and I will never play that again. I would not recommend anyone to ever play that. You start off with an empty gas tank of fury, and you're supposed to fill it up. The little skills you're supposed to do that fill it up are terrible, and I died way too often. It was just a miserable experience. I do not recommend. The ranged character was not nearly as bad as that. It's not as good as Last Epoch, but it was light years better than that Barbarian. I still hear that I'm out of energy too often, and I have to resort to some skill to build that fury meter, or whatever the mana, whatever they call it. I don't know. They changed different names. But I really I didn't care for it all that much. In this game, I kind of wanted to just be done with everything and get through the campaign as quickly as possible. So I basically just followed a build guide. I don't ever like following build guides. I want to just go play the game and enjoy it and follow it myself. And I don't think this game's that complicated, but I don't feel like expending that much thought on this game either. I just want it to be over with and move on. And so that's why I just started following a build guide. And the more I play it, the more I'm like, well, I just don't care. You know, I'm just trying to get this done. It wasn't that hard to play. There's basically like 3 buttons. You got a button that imbues poison, and you got a button that casts this, and a button that generates fury. All right, that's that's the game style. Like, it's so basic, you know. I feel guilty for wasting brain cells trying to develop a build for it, so I just followed somebody's guide. So as far as builds and classes and stuff go, I really just don't have any interest to try the other classes. Compare this to Last Epoch, where I am on point I want to try all the different classes, all the different ascendancies for all the classes. Like, I want to see all the skills and everything. In this game, I'm like, okay, whatever gets me through this as fast as humanly possible. Items. So they're doing a huge itemization rework, but you barely get any items that drop on the ground. Diablo 1, the first Diablo game, has a really low drop rate. Like, you don't get a whole lot of items. I feel like I get more items out of that game than I do this one. I'm level 30 now, and I'll get one item every once in a while. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't feel like, and again, Last Epoch. Last Epoch is the next competitor to it. Like, as far as how close the two are, Last Epoch is the next tier up competitor. It's like right there next to it. And in the same time, like, by the time you're level 2 or 3 in Last Epoch, you've already got a nice stash of loot going on. You've got your stash tab starting to get set up in your bank slot and all that. You're trying to weigh out which items have better gear for what you've got. In Diablo 4, you get a piece of gear, and it will either have a red negative on it that means it's worse gear than you have, or it's got a green positive. I have not ever found a piece of gear where I actually looked at it and said, oh yeah, that's actually got a stat that I want. It's got better lightning resistance or something like that. I literally open it up, mouse over it. If it's red or green, I make my choice. I either throw it away if it's red or equip it if it's green. That's the limit of your choice. And I think the problem is because they've got item power. And Destiny had a setup like that. And I hated the setup in Destiny. Basically, you never looked at your strength or your resistances or your damage or anything like that. You looked at item power, and if it was higher than what you had, you equipped it. That was your choice. You got such little amounts of gear that there was zero reason to ever look at the stats on it. You just equipped whatever was higher. And I think that's unfortunate because a lot of the fun in a Diablo-style game, we're going to get back to that terminology. A Diablo-style game is about loot and weighing the loot. This one gives me a little bit more damage, but this one gives me a little bit more protection. You're going to weigh those options and decide. It's not just because, well, this is item level 320 or item power 320 and that's 319. So this one's better, so it wins. This is a blue item, but it's better because it's 1 point higher. And I don't like the item system, and it sounds like they're doubling down on the item system. They're going to give you less items, but that are more powerful. So you're still going to have less to choose from. So I really don't like their item system in this, and their crafting system is what Last Epoch has. So they're catching up with 5 years ago. At least they're moving forward. Replayability. So I guess there's a lot of replayability. I mean, I've came back with 3 different characters and tried to complete the story 3 different times, and I kind of get stalled out every time. At least this time, when this character goes to the Eternal Realm, I'll have the horse unlocked account-wide, so every character I create from this point forward will have the horse already there, and I don't have to dick around with that bullshit. And this character is fairly far advanced in the story, so if I want to actually continue and finish the story, I can. So there's that. But on the flip side, Season 4 is starting, I think, May? Sometime mid-May. I anticipated going into Season 4 and trying it. Maybe I try it, maybe I don't. I'm not sure. If I did try it, I'd probably try a different class or something to see how that feels. But the way this next Path of Exile League looks, it just literally put the nail in the coffin for Diablo 4 for me. And this is Necropolis League that's all about coffins and bodies and stuff. And I was like, man, that's so fitting. So replayability, yeah, I kind of keep chipping away at Diablo. It's kind of something you just throw on whenever you feel like playing it, and I'm done with it. There are so many better games. And the interesting thing that I see is I think a lot of people are starting with Diablo 4, so they only have up to go. Diablo 4 is the worst kind of Diablo game that has ever existed. Diablo-style game, Diablo 4 is the worst example of it. So you only have up to go. You can go to Last Epoch, hell, you can go to Diablo 2 or 3 and have a better experience, but Last Epoch is a great next step. It's got all the things that this game should have and none of the bullshit that this one does have. So I think it's much better. But let me close all this out. This is, this is a very long video. But let me close all this out and just say that if you enjoy Diablo 4, by all means, enjoy it. This game, I am not the target audience for this game. I am somebody that was brought up on Diablo 1 and 2, and those were the games that defined the genre that this game is supposed to be. So this game is not quite in that genre, and it looks like the developers for this are trying to take it in a different direction. I am not going in that direction. I may play this every once in a while and check it out here and there. I've got, 25 hours into this game right now, something like that. So I don't necessarily feel like I got my money's worth necessarily, but I learned what this game is. I know now that this is not the future for me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I bought Doom Eternal and I love Doom Eternal. I thought it was a great game. It's not for me. I don't care for the constant amount of the stress. Like when I've had a rough day at work, the last thing I want to do is go play Doom Eternal. It's just too much of it. It's too overwhelming. Overwhelming is not necessarily the right word. It's too overbearing and too like they went hard on difficulty. And I just want to relax. You know, if I want to play a Doom game, Doom 2016 is more my style. So I don't always quit playing games because I hate them or don't like them. Sometimes I quit playing them because I'm not the target audience. And this game is extremely casual. I don't think these guys want to develop any more into the Diablo style game. They're kind of going to go off in their own direction. So while I say that this game is not for me, and I personally think the game sucks in a lot of regards, I'd still give it maybe a 6.5 out of 10. I could probably be coerced into giving this a 7 out of 10. Like, just because it does look good and the music's decent and stuff like that. The voice acting's good. The voice acting in Last Epoch is terrible. So this game's got a few things going for it on the actual art and look and appeal for it and everything. But if you want a game that's fun and enjoyable that you're going to keep coming back to, Last Epoch, you know what I mean? But it doesn't have the graphics and the sound design and everything that this game does. It's got some good sound design, but the voice acting is terrible in Last Epoch, and it's really good in this game. So, I would just say that this is not a game for me anymore. The Diablo franchise is going in a weird direction. I don't know who Lilith is. They've just created their own narrative, and they're going to start telling their own story. They're going to be selling you Mephisto for $70. Do we get Diablo ever in the Diablo game? What I'll probably do is wait until they come out with all of it into some big expansion where I can just buy the next three expansions or whatever and own all the Primevals. I'm a little disappointed they didn't include the Primevals or that they're going to sell them back as DLC. But to basically sum it up, this game is no longer directed at me as a target audience, much like some other games that I've played. And as sad as that is, it is the way it is. There are people that are enjoying this game, and I don't really want to shit all over their parade, even though I do, because I bitch about how much I don't like this game. But it is what it is. I had different expectations than what it ended up being. So what I plan on doing is, instead of spending the next 20 hours of my life trying to get through this game, is to spend the next 20 hours of my life, my gaming life, planning for the next Path of Exile League. I just feel like I'm wasting time and not really going to get anywhere. Season 4 of this game is going to be whatever it is. I now have the horse, which is like the biggest thing that I needed to get done. And if I've got that done, I can skip the campaign, go right into the horse and play season 4 for a few hours and be done with it just as fast as I was with season 2. So I don't know. It'll be a little bit of a distraction. So that finally, almost an hour later, will do it for this video. Hopefully this has been helpful in some fashion. I don't know. I figure there's going to be half the people agree with me and half the people are going to yell at me because I have a bad opinion, but I'm an old school fan of this. It didn't deliver what I wanted out of it. I know now to cross this series off my list and never look at it again. So I am no longer going to be a customer for this unless it's dirt cheap and I really feel the need to go back to it. I'll probably check it out here and there because I own the base game, but that's what they're going to get out of me. So that will do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.